All right, so let's get started. So, with our aim of this project, it was very dicey at the start, to be honest. I suppose Singh would relate. But we had a goal, and I suppose we've reached uh, uh, like super close to it. We're super close to it, and we're almost done. So, I'll start with what this builds up to. So we are working on shipping full stack components for the community via a, a shippable uh, place like NPM. So let's get started. So what problem are we solving? So we are basically trying to make something so such that we can build, package, and ship components with server-side rendering and uh, build time fetching as well. So yeah, uh, and TLDR, the solution is basically React 18 suspense plus the SWC compiler. But that didn't come easy to us. It took a lot of reverse engineering to get to this point. And I'll walk you through the entire journey of the project, how the decisions we made, how the mentors played a great role in this, and so on. So, yeah, so the first question one might think with this project is why do we even need this? And I suppose there are quite a few things that full stack components would solve. And I suppose it would be the future as we go on, especially with React 18 taking that, uh, digging into that space. So, yeah, so the first point would be really easy shipment and modularity. So, individual teams could work on individual components and ship them independently. And that would enable a lot of stuff. And build time data fetching. Well, you want to scale to millions. Build time fetching does that. So, yeah, so build time data fetching is now possible in NPM components. I mean, that's magical, right? And yeah, so as I said, independent development and deployment. So, moving forward, uh, I'll also tell you what the vision behind this project is. GSoC Community Hub. So even if a person doesn't know how to code, they should be able to get going on with full stack components uh, without really knowing what's going behind the scenes. But say via a drag droppable instance, they can easily get started. And automating that process would get super simple with full stack components. So yeah. So you might wonder how is this even possible? So incoming React Server Components. So what's React Server Components? It's basically a whole new way to think about the web, to be honest. Uh, so React now gives you the flexibility to choose where you render your components based on your progress. So say you want to fetch some data and not from the client's machine, close to the server. Uh, the database is really close to the server than to the client's machine. Then uh, React 18 lets you do that. So you can fetch on the server and then it'll then send the HTML back to the client, and then each of the DOM nodes are getting hydrated. And you might think this was kind of possible with Next.js. Well, yeah, you are correct, but that was at a page level, and that's not really it. With React Server Components, I React 18, you can do it at a per component level, and that's what helped us build this thing that I'm going to show you. So, and what's with the whole build time thing? Um, it took a lot of time to wrap my head around, but thanks to my mentors, especially Sting, uh, I understood that why we do need to do a lot of stuff and build time, and the components that we've built in this tenure mostly revolve around uh, fetching data at the build time. So with these components, as I keep repeating it, you can fetch the data at the build time and optionally at the runtime via server-side run. So, and this actually started even before GSoC tenure. It almost started in January when Singh told me that we had to work on this, and uh, I was totally clueless on what's how do monorepos work, how do we package normal components to npm, how does the dependency management works across monorepos. I had so many doubts, and yeah, Twitter came to rescue, and the open source community in general. As you can see, a lot of people helped me schedule meets, and we had a lot of brainstorming. After which, I could uh, finally decide on a structure of the project and the architecture of the project. And yeah, this took around a lot of time, and it's good that I was over with this before GSoC started. So, but as GSoC started, we still were wondering like, how do we get the full stack behavior? And so I'll walk you through how we actually got to the point we actually are now. So at the start, we were trying separate imports. As you could see over here, uh, the UI was rendered separately and the data fetch happened in a separate call. Even this was a major upgrade from what we had before. But this didn't really solve what we are aiming to. It's like we could export the different functions, the UI and the data fetching logic from the same library, the same npm library, uh, under different files, but it didn't really solve the thing we were aiming to. Um, and the main problem with this was, uh, so you have to understand there are two types of components. One is server components and other is client components. And when bundling them together, if you do it in one single file, the whole thing breaks because Next.js doesn't know how to understand the code, uh, like how to differentiate between client and server components. And we were stuck a lot on this. And during this, we started building the components. But yeah, and the other part of the problem was, well, styling. I mean, again, Singh would relate a lot on this. Um, we had so many discussions on this, but yeah, there are so many ways to style your project these days. Like, uh, how do you support them all? So that was another problem, uh, and avoiding conflicting styles, and there were so many other problems. Uh, well, it's just problems till now, huh? So let's move on. But wait a minute. Doesn't Next.js somehow manage to do it and build it and bundle it when you write your code? Yeah, so that is where the underlying answer was. Um yeah, so that's how I started diving into how Next.js does it. And yeah, incoming the SWC compiler that Next.js uses internally. And I went through how they exactly do package these components and make it work. And with a lot of hit and trial, custom logic, and tons of errors, we finally got to a stage where we could do this. So we export one single component, and we can. So for instance, this is the Hacker News component. We give it the tag in the JSX itself, and all the data fetching happens behind the scenes. Um, it can happen during the build time, and optionally, if you wanted, you can configure it to have it at runtime. But well, if you want to scale, let's do it at build. Um, and wait, what about the styling? Yeah, we got that covered as well. So, for instance, you write the code in Tailwind, but you want to write some parts of it in module CSS that Next.js supports. So our library is doesn't care about that. So there is really nice documentation on which styles and which classes are there on a particular component, and You can override that easily using this style overrides object. And yeah, so that solves that. Now, what's next? Well, we've built a framework around it. Now we need support from the community to build more exciting components around it. But that's not to say that we've not built some of our own. So let's get started with the components that we've built. So yeah, I'll share screen. So there are a lot of components right now. So one of them is the Twitter component. The Twitter API doesn't play well. So yep, a lot of reverse engineering around this, but we finally got it working. So you give it the organization and by our tags, so it's a community tag. It'll separate it in tags, and it can show these different tabs under which different tweets with a max number of likes would be shown under that particular tag. So product and highlights, you can configure how many ever tabs you want, and the next one would be the Hacker News component. So yeah, it's always exciting when your community gets a shout out over Hacker News, doesn't it? So keeping track of that, and uh, the whole point of the GSoC Hub is to get excited when you come to this website. So uh, yeah, so there is this Hacker News component which has all the top posts, the new posts, the best posts, and yeah. So we've built it with good default styles, but every part of this is completely overwritable, and people can configure it. And this is the Stack Overflow component. So you just give it a tag called Rocket.Chat, and it'll uh, browse through all of the posts and pick out the top posts, the unanswered posts, the trending posts, the new ones, and yeah. Um, then there's the GSoC leaderboard, the very famous one, and I've converted this to server-side rendering with full-stack componentization as well. So yeah, and blogs. Well, everyone loves to share blogs, right? So uh, you just give it the ID or the tag you want to search it from. You give that component the ID, and it'll do the magic for you. So this component basically fetches from dev2, which uses 4m, and the hash node one also does the same via the hash node APIs. And there is also the Reddit component. So a lot of communities hang over Reddit. So hence we thought of making this component as well. So yeah, these are the components, and there is another component for GitHub discussions, since a lot of communities hang over there as well. And thought of supporting another handy component, the Discord component. So you can chat with your channel directly from here as a guest, or you could log in as well. So you can type in messages over here, and that would get synced accordingly. And yep, you can make the channel read only as well, so that uh, and that's pretty much it about the components. And there's a ton of code behind this. Uh, and now the next thing would be uh, thanking all my mentors for like keeping me on track, especially. We were super confused with where the project was going at the time. We pulled it back together, and finally, I think we're at the point where